O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. So today we hear from Jesus again, the second half of his sermon. They purposely, for some reason, cut our sermon off in half last week, so we get the rest of our sermon this week. And so I think about somewhat of my character is a person who is a perfectionist. And so I think, why do I try to think that I have to be so perfect? Because I'm not, but I'm always trying to be perfect. And what that does is it stops me from being more than I really can be. And I might even procrastinate because when I try to be perfect, I can't be perfect. And so it's like, and it ends up being to the point where I won't even try it at all, maybe. Or I wait till the last minute to do something. Well, even in 7th grade, I noticed that when I look back, I even bought this little poster thing. I put it up in my room and it said, "I'm going to stop procrastinating starting tomorrow." And so we know that Jesus is not a perfectionist. And why is that? Because Jesus is perfect. Jesus does not procrastinate. In fact, it says today that Jesus fulfills good news today. Jesus read from the scroll of Isaiah, where God promised through Isaiah, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Then Jesus rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and said, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." The people of Nazareth fail to recognize that this good news is for all, and it's today. Jesus is a prophet, and he knows the hearts of this hometown congregation. The hometown people are amazed at his gracious words. They anticipate that Jesus will begin today in their hometown to bring about their release from the oppressive rule of the Romans. So Jesus stopped reading before he got to the part where Isaiah talked about vengeance. But the people of Nazareth knew that part all too well. They were looking forward to the day when God would wreak vengeance on the Romans. Jesus reminds them of a dark time in their history when the Israelites had turned to idols and they had kind of fallen away from worshiping the one true God. God sent the prophet Elijah to feed the poor widow and her son, who were foreigners from Sidon. There were also many lepers in Israel in the time of the prophet Elisha, and none of them was cleansed except Naaman the Syrian, who was a commander of the enemy army. When they heard Jesus say this, all in the synagogue were filled with rage. You see, they alone felt entitled to receive God's grace and God's favor. Are we any different than the hometown people who heard Jesus preach in a small synagogue in the little town of Nazareth? I believe we're hardworking people, and we sometimes don't realize how privileged we are to live in a place that has never really experienced the type of need that Jesus is describing here today. Have we ever experienced what it's like to be that poor? To be so poor that we don't know where our next meal is coming? Do we feel threatened by those who are different than us? Are we the ones who are blind and need our sight recovered in order to see the needs of others? Has your integrity ever been questioned because of the color of your skin? Some of you may remember last year when we had Leighton Walker here, the guy from Jamaica, and some of the struggles he had in his life when he came to the U.S. from Jamaica. He didn't tell you about the time when he was in Walmart, and he was trying to return a camera because somehow they'd gotten 2 cameras from getting gifts. And so he went back with the receipt to get his money back for the second camera they didn't need, and they wouldn't give it to him. Like, really? Got the receipt here, here's the camera. What's up with that? Well, Mindy's waiting out in the car for him because she was going around doing some errands with him. And she finally goes back in there to see what's taking so long. She goes in there, finds out what's going on, and she kind of explains to him, well, what's the deal? Here's the receipt, and here's this, and why don't we go on to the shelf and do your little scan thing and see this is the camera that comes from here. And then finally she just say, oh, just forget it. I'll give you the money back for the camera. And yet she wouldn't do that till a white woman came in and said that what was going on here was not right. We tend to focus so much on our own needs that we procrastinate. I'll take care of them after my needs are met. Some have experienced health issues in their family or some kind of trauma, such as a divorce maybe, or a loved one who has lost a job, or feelings of sadness or depression. We may even get angry with God. Why me, Lord? What have I done to deserve this pain and suffering? The congregation in Jerusalem were so filled, or not Jerusalem, but in the ones in our story today from Nazareth were so filled with rage that they led him out of the town and intended to hurl him off a cliff because he seemed more concerned with helping those who they felt were the undesirables, even their enemies. Couldn't Jesus see that they were the chosen ones of God? Take care of us now, today. You can take care of them tomorrow. They didn't realize that Jesus is the fulfillment of the prophecy today, to bring healing and wholeness for all. Even in the midst of their suffering, Jesus is with them and with others. However, they don't realize when they reject that Jesus is right there with them. He's in their midst, and they let him slip away. Jesus went on his way, for sure, to spread that good news to the poor and oppressed, those who need healing, for the wholeness and the very person of God with us. On his way, Jesus will journey toward a cross of rejection and bring resurrection life. Jesus is with us today, and tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. Even in rejection, Jesus comes to you in the proclamation of his word of sacrificial love. Jesus comes to you today in the bread and wine and says, this is my body given for you. This is my blood shed for you for the forgiveness of your sins. Jesus comes to you as a gift. Receive him with open hands. Jesus is in our midst. As imperfect as we are, Jesus uses us in spite of our imperfection to bless other people. So I met this retired man at J-Mars. He's there every day. I'm there washing windows once a week. Every time I go there, he's eating breakfast, he's sitting alone. And he just seems so needy. And he's like, why can't I find a woman companion? What is it with me? What's wrong with me that I can't find somebody to spend time with? And I had a little conversation with him about that. I said, well, maybe you could try focusing on others. Maybe go out and volunteer somewhere and be more concerned about helping other people And then maybe that person will come along that will be a companion for you. I met another man at Village Inn who sits alone, but he is full of joy and relishes in blessing others with kind words and deeds. He even writes notes to the waitresses or whoever. He has little cards that says, God loves you, God bless you and your family. So he's always blessing others. And you can just see the Spirit of God just emanating from this guy. What a difference between these two men who sit alone. One seeks his own desires, and the other finds the desire of his heart in Jesus, and then shares the love of Jesus with others. The congregation at Nazareth focused on what they could get instead of what they could give. Jesus is in our midst today and invites us to minister to the poor and the oppressed. Today, each one of us has unique gifts and experiences. We have those experiences we can share with others. Maybe you or a loved one has gone through or is going through a health issue. Maybe they can be helping someone else in a similar position. Today, Jesus is inviting each and every one of us to receive the love that God has for you and to share it with the poor, the oppressed, and the undeserving. Amen.